Welcome back to season 2 of Grow Organically. I'm your host, Dan Gilmartin. Took a little time off to take a little bit of a breath, but really excited to be kicking off season 2. More excited to welcome first guest of season 2, my friend David Canter. David is the CEO of Finley Point Strategy, focuses on helping folks in the asset management, wealth management, and fintech ecosystem. He is also a strategic advisor to CASE, as well as a senior advisor to McKinsey and Company. He's a former president of Blue Spring Wealth Partners and the former head of Fidelity Investments, RIA, and family office business. He will probably tell you that his golf handicap is a 14, but I think he plays to about a 10. David, welcome to the program. So great to have you here. What have I missed? Your career is expansive. You've done a ton. What have I missed in that backgrounder?
Well, Dan, I'm so pleased to be here for season 2. Congratulations. I think, this is a great podcast that you have. The only thing I think you probably missed, I'm not going to play the guitar, but I am in the band High Fidelity, which I'm proud to be a member of. So happy to be here with you, my very good friend.
I love it, and I'm looking forward to hearing you play. I think in September we might be at a conference together, so looking forward to it. That'll be great.
That's right. We can talk about that.
So let's jump in.
Yeah.
So I was at a conference. I think it's about 2 years ago now, and this wise man got up on stage and prepared to give remarks, and during the remarks. Shared this anecdote, and I thought it was really important. He said, organic growth is truth. This is grow organically. And that wise man was you. So let's bring those two things together. Please explain what you meant. Organic growth is truth. Let's get right to the heart of the matter.
Well, thank you for attributing that comment to me, Dan. It's very charitable of you. And, others who've come before me have made that comment. And whether you're in the wealth management business or other businesses, virtually any other business, organic growth really refers to the heartbeat of the business. It means that you're growing, you're getting new clients, you're getting new assets to the business, and you're doing it at a rate that's faster than, any kind of attrition that follows. And why is organic growth important? For 3 main reasons. Number one, organic growth creates new opportunities for the stakeholders in the business, your associates, your team members. Number two, it's going to help you invest in the business because you'll have more resources by virtue of that growth, so you can provide more services and more capabilities for your clients. And number three, as a shareholder, organic growth is going to be one of those key metrics that helps drive the enterprise value of the company or the enterprise. There's no other metric that I can think of that is more, vital to the business. Markets can go up, markets can go down. You can grow inorganically, but that organic growth is really the one measure beyond all others that, I look to as, the pinnacle, if you will.
You talked about inorganic growth, David, and another important factor in this business. But that's using your war chest. It's using your cap table as a way to drive that. And organic growth is your ability to go out, find that net new client, or find that net new assets from the existing client and bring that in. I love that framework of how that impacts the business in those 3 different areas. And maybe pulling to that last comment that you made about the value of the organization, another wise man, this one, David DeVoe, has said to me personally and numerous times on stage that for every 1% increase in organic growth, a firm's valuation increases by 7%. A pretty huge impact given valuations and multiples in this business. Why do you think this number holds true? A 1% increase in organic drives a 7% increase in firm valuation. Organic growth being the driver of that. Why do you think that's true?
Yeah, there's several reasons that I think that's true. And maybe before I, give you those reasons, I think we need to take stock and just be plain plain spoken about it or wide-eyed, as some say, that most firms really aren't growing materially in this space. Because if you think about it, every year as a wealth management firm, you have to believe that you're going to start the year, behind the curve, because clients are going to take, required minimum distributions. They're going to need to spend their money, especially those who are, in retirement. And, many firms think of it, well, with respect to, growth, I have to hold serve just by getting my existing clients to add to their relationships. And that can hopefully, zero out any kind of distributions that other clients are taking. So you got to go out and grow. And so, I think the average firm in the wealth management space grows at about 2% a year. Um, and, if you think about what can happen in the market, what can happen in other growth driver areas of the business, that's not a high growth business. So the ones that really can grow, that can grow in the high single digits or even in the low teens, are the ones that are going to stand out. And the reason that they're entitled to a higher valuation, especially if you can do so under a prolonged period. And I'm not saying that it's one year you have meteoric growth and the rest of the time it's mediocre. It's because you have a program in place. You can demonstrate to investors, you can demonstrate to the outside marketplace that you have this organic growth engine. And that's going to entitle you to a higher valuation because you're going to have more earnings that we talked about. These earnings are going to compound. And, if you look back over a period of time, your revenue and your profitability are going to continue to expand and expand at a rate that's higher than other players in the profession. Most firms do a pretty good job of maintaining margins. So the only way you can actually get more capital to invest is by getting more revenue and more earnings that you can then, have at least the option to plow back into the business.
And I think some firms may look at, or prognosticators may look at the market impact on growth, and that may allow some folks to take a step back and maybe relax a little bit, that the market is helping increase their overall business. But I think it's truly the organic that shows the ability within the firm to go out and identify who their prospect is, engage with that prospect, and build a flywheel, build a machine that's going to help drive that new business in versus relying on market growth or relying on anything else.
Yeah, and thank you for reminding me. We should just always, set the table that organic growth is X market. Organic growth is, new clients, new assets to the firm, excluding markets.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go back 10 years ago when I was, newer to the M&A space, not all firms were doing a good job dissecting out market growth versus true organic growth versus even inorganic growth.
Right.
So, those are the three main drivers to a firm's, growth elixir, if you will. Organic growth, market growth, and inorganic growth. Now we can talk about, and I'm sure we will, some of the, the tactics that firms take to drive organic growth. But those are the three that I always look for.
Yeah, well, let's do that. Let's jump into. I like to think about thematically team and tactics. You need a group of people to drive exercises that are going to bring in organic growth across a lot of different channels through which you're going to do that, and that's the tactics. So team and tactics, you've worked directly with lots of firms in your career, at largest firms, senior level. Your experience, what have you seen? Let's take the team first. What does a real growth team look like inside of an organization?
Yeah, well, I guess I'd start by quoting, my favorite rock and roller of a certain age. I think we all know that, the Grateful Dead is my favorite band, but my good friend Marvin Lee Aday, known in the vernacular as Meatloaf, said 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I think there are these 7 drivers of growth. There's
Mm-hmm.
good old-fashioned client referrals. There's COI referrals, which include custodial referral programs.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's good old-fashioned, advisor recruiting one at a time. We mentioned M&A.
Hmm.
There's, getting folks that are, about to retire or in retirement, do the so-called retirement to wealth bridge. There's an area that, Catchlight is just so vital. Well, Catchlight's vital in all of these things because it helps optimize how you're thinking about your leads, but certainly in the digital marketing context, Catchlight is really the accelerant to all of these that we really need to focus on as well. Um, and then, I think that, folks often overlook, the ways that, people go to market and get extra share of wallet. So, those are, let's call it the seven ways. And I
Hmm.
think that the true growth teams that you referred to, operate in a growth mindset that they're going to focus on, these areas in a dedicated fashion. So what do I mean by that? If they are, trying to grow inorganically, well, they have a team that's focused on developing the pipeline, building it, optimizing it. If they're trying to go to market digitally, they've got a digital marketing program which starts at the top of the funnel with, lead catalyzation, then how do you nurture the lead, and then how do you actually close the lead? And then certainly, we could have a whole discussion, maybe another podcast where you've probably had this podcast about optimizing, custodial referral programs. So the fact of the matter is you need the right organizational capability around it, the right team members, the right focus, and then you need the right tools and technology to go along with these tactics and the team, as you said. I guess that would be the four T's: tools, technology, team, and tactics. And I think that's
Yeah,
what
there you go. I like.
and that's where I think, I'm not here to talk about Catchlight because you have every capability of doing that, but that's where I've been very impressed is when in a world where everyone's focused on growth, they need help beyond the team, beyond the organizational capability. They need the right tools and tactics.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you for the kind words on Catchlight. That's not why we're here, but appreciate that. And so you dissect the seven tactics or seven channels, if you will, and clearly inorganic. You need an M&A team that are going to go out, source, do the diligence, onboard that whole thing, and then some firms are going to do advisor acquisition. If you took those two out and you looked at um, and maybe even put custodial referrals on the sideline too, of the three remaining, in your conversation with firms, where do you see they're really making an impact? Is there one that sort of, or two that rise above the other from a tactics perspective, and specifically in driving the ability to scale and drive that consistent organic growth?
Well, I'll tell you where I see most firms, or larger firms at least, not most firms, but larger firms focusing is around that direct to consumer marketing. It's been
Hmm.
sort of an area where historically advisory firms haven't placed a lot of chips, if you will. Um, there's some notable exclusions or notable exceptions, if you will. But I think that's an area that is still greenfield, and firms are still testing it. I don't think they've seen a lot of results, but if you ask me, like, where are folks actually putting their bets, is like, how do I get more exposure to my firm, either through social media, social marketing, and other channels. It actually, even if it doesn't have a direct ROI today, it does, serve as a form of what I call social proof when, firms are researching an advisory firm.
Hmm.
And it's also a way to compete, in the open marketplace, just to draw back to things like COIs that, you may do well in a particular program, whether it's a custodial referral program or another, center of influence program. But this is a way to sort of take it, in a less kind of captive ecosystem. A lot of firms are putting in place more targeted and dedicated client referral programs. I would say
Hmm.
that, it's sort of, what's old is new. This is how firms grew the old-fashioned way, one at a time from a client. But how can you sort of get a more dedicated and disciplined paradigm with client referrals? So, it's what did the Who once say? Meet the old boss, same as to meet the new boss, same as the old boss. So it's going back to the future.
Love it, love it. Yeah, and I think those existing client referrals, there's never a guarantee there. So I think the backstop of digital to help fill that gap is really important. But as I talk to firms, understanding the power of those referrals, but also the ability to systematize that process. I think it was sort of catch as catch can in the past, where now they're looking for technology, they're looking for workflows to help organize that a little bit more and really teach advisors how to ask for that referral. It can be difficult at times. So we talked a little bit about the team, the tactics, the technology, sort of 7 categories. I'm curious. You've been at this for a little while. I'm not calling you old. I'm just calling you, well seasoned and super experienced. You've taught me a lot personally. So, but any reflections on things that used to work that don't work anymore? The industry is changing. I think the advent of technology, certainly AI, we see it more and more from front office through back office. But is there anything that you saw in the past that maybe people are still trying to figure it out, but it's just not the industry has changed. It's gone past that.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a tact on not that what it used to work doesn't work anymore, but where I see the number one area that firms can instantly add value and without necessarily getting immediate results, and it's more activity based than results based, but create an old fashioned lead pipeline.
Mm,
I can't tell you how many firms don't have a pipeline and actually use an old fashioned new business development funnel.
hmm
So my number one recommendation for folks turning into this podcast, which I'm so happy to be on season 2, um, is, hey, create a dedicated, disciplined, systematized new business development funnel and track it. And if you track that longitudinally, meaning from month to month, from quarter to quarter, year to year, you'll have a sense of the quality of that pipeline, your likelihood to close the business, and it will create value, because it then will give you a predictability of what your new assets or your new revenue is going to be, and it will flow into your organic growth. Now, how does that, apply to your question? What worked but doesn't work any longer? I think there's some great firms out there that by virtue of having, a wonderful senior advisor or founder, the Dan Gilmartin of the firm, if you will, that are going to continue to attract, new business, irrespective of whether you have a great pipeline. But we're here in the business of optimization. We're here in the business of actually expanding, the advisor base that's going to win the new business. So I think that, just creating a pipeline, tracking it, training to it is actually low hanging fruit, frankly. And I'm amazed, Dan, with the number of firms that I, will visit with, I will help with, that don't even have this pipeline.
hmm
So it's the old expression that my wife likes to say, if you don't know where you're going, you might end up someplace else.
That sounds like a yogiism almost. Well, I deeply appreciate that as a marketer at heart. The ability to measure and track vitally important because that gives you the insight into how whichever tactic you're employing is working. And you said it, where you may find scale. I think is critical. We did an analysis for a customer of ours. We looked at all of their inbound, all their digital channels, and we were able to help them identify based on their ICP about 28% of their spend was going against tactics that simply weren't delivering what they were looking for. So, measure, track, review, scale up, scale down, wash, rinse, repeat. Pretty critical, I think. All right. So, David, last question. I want you to put yourself in the seat of you're leading a firm, and you're an RIA. You're a good size RIA, and you want to get some organic growth going. Given what you know now, we're actually going to transport you back 10 years ago. What would you be telling yourself 10 years ago that you got to start doing, you got to start working on today?
Yeah, well, and there's some strategic choices that are in. But I would say, I'm going to actually quote Jeff Bezos because, he's often asked, or he has often been asked, what does the future look like 5, 10 years from now? And what are the changes going to be? And, he'll often, give the refrain, well, here's what's not going to change. And, you know, putting aside our current, AI revolution, and by AI, I'm not talking alternative investments, although those are revolutionizing, but artificial intelligence.
Sure.
What's not going to change are, the three core tenets of this business: focus on your clients and by extension, your prospects. Focus on your team members, today and as they grow and into the future. And then, focus on the firm and protecting the firm.
Hmm.
Um, and I'd say that those are, the things that, irrespective of what time period we're in, whether we're in 2000 and 15 or 2025, those are never going to change. And irrespective of technology. But what I would say is, I would have to pare it back to you, but add one: focus on your team. Continue developing the team, focus on, the development, but also thinking about the future. Focus on the tactics, but then overlay that with, your strategic initiatives and have a strategy. Have a strategy. It can be very basic. We're going to focus on organic growth, and this is what we're going to do. Or it can be, we're going to focus on organic growth and inorganic growth, and this is what we're going to do. But these are your strategic choices. And I like to say, Dan, that whenever I'm meeting with a firm, and I've said this a lot, I always ask 5 questions. If you wanted to just start with this at a firm, it's: who are your target clients today and in the future?
Hmm.
By the way, and by extension, you can say, who are my target advisors today and in the future? What capabilities do we want to offer today and in the future? What's our org structure? What's our team to actually take these capabilities to market? What's our infrastructure? And that can be technology, it can be processes, it can even be real estate, but your technology is going to propel your client offering, your clients, your associates, and your org structure, forward. But then you always have to be asking yourself in any business, what's your unfair advantage? What distinguishes you? What makes you different? What helps you, rise above a sea of sameness? So, you know, I guess all of that, I keep quoting rock and roll, but as Led Zeppelin would say, the song remains the same. Um, but you got to focus on those, team, tactics, and strategy.
Yeah, and that strategy being that foundation upon which you build that team, you build your services, you acquire and take care of your clients, you acquire and take care of your advisors, and not that it's all easy sailing. There's a lot of work to do, but appreciate the thought there of creating that foundation, putting in teams and tactics together. And I would just add, when it comes to new channels, new strategies for organic growth, go back to the comment you made earlier about measurement and tracking. And perhaps it's as simple as define one channel and focus on that for a quarter. Don't try and boil the ocean. Don't try and do everything at once because you're likely to fail. But if you pick one tactic, one channel, really focus on that for a quarter, give maybe 2 quarters, given sales cycle lengths. But you'll start to figure out what's working and what's not working.
Dan, if I could add one thing, and
Sure.
just one more thing. I mean, I shouldn't have left this out, which is the big change I've seen in the last 10 years is we've entered the era of the platform.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is, you know, advisory firms that have a platform, which is a set of capabilities um, that then can provide leverage to the advisor, as opposed to a firm just serving clients. We're in the age of the platform. And I think the choice for firms, whether they want to grow organically or as they think about their future, is, am I going to continue to build, curate it on my own? Or am I going to, find someone to partner with? But that has been the biggest change over the last 10 years. Along with private equity and outside capital coming into the RIA world, it's been consonant with or consistent with the birth of the platform. So I didn't want to leave that out.
No, it's a great point and a great closing point because there's been so much development across software, SaaS in particular, platforms enabling businesses to grow and grow pretty easily, but take a lot of that work off of the plates and bring those pieces of technology together in a more orchestrated fashion. So appreciate that comment. I see you're grabbing the guitar. Okay. Do you have a Catchlight song that you want to play for us, David? Maybe strum a little something?
Well, you won't be able to hear it because of complex sound reasons, but I am giving a C chord shape for Catchlight, but I'll give an A chord shape because I give your podcast, Dan, an A plus.
Well, there we have it. David, thank you so much, my friend. Appreciate your time here and your wisdom as always. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you for listening to the Grow Organically podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit catchlight.ai, where you can access all our podcasts, including show notes and other resources to keep learning. This podcast was produced by Catchlight Insights, LLC. It is for informational and educational purposes only. The content of this podcast does not constitute an offer or recommendation of any securities and is not intended to provide tax, legal, or investment advice. The views expressed are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of Catchlight or its affiliates, and are as of the date indicated, based on the information available at that time, and may change based on market or other conditions. Catchlight does not assume any duty to update any of the information. Catchlight and other third parties mentioned in the podcast are independent entities and not affiliated. Catchlight does not endorse any investment advisor or provide advice or recommendations to any prospective or existing client of an investment advisor as to the selection or retention of that investment advisor. The information is not intended for any person or entity in any jurisdiction where the distribution or use of such information would be contrary to local law. Third-party trademarks referenced herein are the property of the respective owners. All others are the property of Catchlight Insights, LLC, copyright 2024 Catchlight Insights, LLC. All rights reserved.